This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. All right. I do this every year, man, and it's one of the videos I enjoy the most. It's a video where I get to step outside of our usual comfort zone, where I'm not just talking only about the Cleveland Browns, but where I am talking about the entire AFC North. Now, if you want to see me break down more of just the NFL picture in general, make sure you subscribe to Q and Cole. It's a fun channel I do with my boy Cole. You know him from Twitter, most likely, where we kind of just react to some hot takes and whatever's going on in the NFL at that time. In general, NFL conversations. Also, I do AFC North talk with Sonny and Ace, and that's always a good time. You get to hear a lot of different perspectives of the AFC North every week, twice a week on that channel too. So make sure you check those things out. But today, what I'm doing is I'm talking about the AFC North, what is projected to be one of the best divisions in football, what people have said is one of the best divisions in football for a very long time, and for good reason. The Browns have had a great roster for a long time. The Steelers have been a solid team for a long time, and the Ravens and the Bengals have been the top two so far for the last 5 years. Is that going to change this year? It's possible. It's possible that there's a change to the status quo. So what I'm going to do is talk about every AFC North team and talk about what these teams have going for them, why they could be successful, and what they might have going against them. And then I'm going to get to a win range with these teams. And I'm going to start with the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Baltimore Ravens have really good linebackers and a really good secondary. Well, not even the secondary. I think they have really good linebackers, a good interior defensive line, and some solid safeties. I think the Ravens upgraded at wide receiver, and I think the Ravens have good running backs. They have a former MVP at quarterback, and they're going to be putting that former MVP in a new offense. Hopefully, the ideal is that they unlock whatever that former MVP and Lamar Jackson has not been able to unlock in his career since he's been put in this Greg Roman offense. And on the surface, if you just look at those things, I can see where you could build a pretty positive argument for the Baltimore Ravens. Roquan Smith is going to get a full offseason with them. He's only going to get better. This defensive interior is going to be good. You get David Ajabo back. You switch to the offensive side of the ball, and you feel good because you have the best wide receiving core that you've had in Baltimore for a very long time. You add that on top of Mark Andrews, and you allow Lamar Jackson to take the handcuffs off in the passing game, and you expect a jump. And I can understand why Baltimore Raven fans will feel that way, or at least want to feel that way. I'm put in this position a lot to be the person who introduces the possible rain to the Baltimore Ravens parade, but I have to see things fairly. I look at their new offense and I get more questions than answers about how they've gone about the offseason and how this offense is going to look. One real questionable to me that they did not try this offense out in a preseason game. I mean, given the Baltimore Ravens injury history, I know why they would be cautious, but you're going to be throwing Lamar Jackson out there playing a different offense than he's ever played in the NFL system. Even different from what he did with Bobby Petrino, because that was more of a traditional pro style and not like a spread. And you're just going to throw that at him week one. And I think there's going to be growing pains with that. Let's look at that defense, because while people will readily say that the Baltimore Ravens are going to have a good defense, when you take the microscope to that defense, and that's the common thread with the Baltimore Ravens this year, whenever I take a microscope to this team, you can see some things just ain't fitting like they supposed to. Perfect example. You look at that defense and you look from the outside looking in, you're like, hey, that'd be a good defense. It's the Baltimore Ravens. They still wearing the same jerseys. That defense is always good. And I know Roquan Smith is there and Marlon Humphrey. Okay. Yeah. You look at it from 10,000 feet. It looks fine. You put that microscope on and then all of a sudden you see that Marlon Humphrey's already injured. You look at the next thing, which is Marlon doesn't have Marcus Peters next to him anymore. It's Rock Ya-Sin. It's a downgrade, in my opinion, from Marcus Peters. So that secondary might not be as good. Then you look at their edge rushers and you realize it's like Tyus Bowser, it's Odafe Owe, it's David Ojabo and Jadeveon Clown. That's not an appetizing selection of pass rushers, right? Like, it's not a lot of guys who have had a ton of sacks in the NFL. These are guys who have struggled to get those numbers in the NFL and even in college, right? If you go with Odafe Owe. So you look at them closer and you're like, man, they might not have an edge rush. Man, they might not be that good at corner. Man, we're really putting a lot on the secondary and some linebackers to really hold this defense back. And you look at what they're good at. And like, again, having good linebackers is important, but it's not the thing that changes the outlook of your defense. Having good interior defensive linemen is important, but it's not going to change the outlook of your defense in one direction or the other unless you're awful at those positions. And the same thing goes with the safety. And you look at the corners, all the important positions for the Baltimore Ravens on this defense, they've either downgraded from last year or they've gotten worse in some other way, right? Via injury. And in the boundary corners case, it's both. And I just worry about that. I'm like, man, that doesn't look right with that defense. And the offense, like, I got more questions about the offense, to be honest with you. One, they didn't go out there practice, so I can't really tell how they look. But Todd Monken has just been given this pass because he's not Greg Roman. But Todd Monken has not been a more successful offensive coordinator than Greg Roman. Yet we're expecting Todd Monken to go in there and make this offense look better than it did with Greg Roman. Now, again, I understand Greg Roman has his flaws. He has the things that will drive you crazy. But at the end of the day, his offenses did work. Limited, but they did work. Sometimes Todd Monken's offenses, especially in the NFL, just didn't work. And what I worry the most about is that they're going to be trying to fit in some of these Greg Roman concepts with some of these spread concepts and that they're going to be incompatible. I've seen what it looks like when you try to Frankenstein a part of an offense, a rushing part of an offense that you like a lot with Todd Monken's passing attack, and it's not good. It doesn't fit. It's not supposed to be. And then that goes into the passing aspect of this. Now, I'm not one of those people who think that Lamar Jackson can't throw the ball. I think he's a more than capable passer. But any passer of the football has their strengths when they're throwing the football. Some guys are better down the field and more accurate. Some guys are better short to intermediate. Some guys can work the middle of the field. Some guys can work the boundaries, right? Every passer has their own strengths and weaknesses. And Lamar Jackson, I think, is a great passer at the boundaries. I think he's a great passer in the middle of the field. I think he's an excellent passer in the middle of the field when he's able to take advantage of that stuff, especially in that short RPO game. What he's always struggled at is those deep balls. Last year, the year before, you look at the most egregious Lamar Jackson missed throws, is that, right? You look at some of the most egregious Lamar Jackson misreads, it's deep balls. So, again, I question whether this offense is actually putting the Baltimore Ravens personnel, their roster, at its best use. I don't think it is. So you have a defense that looks not suspect, but less than advertised once you look at them under a microscope. You have an offense that I think is all kind of questionable at this point. And we're really just like, hey, Lamar's just going to figure it out. And I don't know. I think this is a team with a tremendous win-loss range. I think their range is 8 to 11 wins. I can see this not working and them being a very frustrated 8 or 9 win team. I don't think that's out the realm of possibility. They have Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson just hasn't lost that many games in the NFL because he's been that spectacular of a quarterback. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But that's a team I have my eye on. Like, hey, if some of these things don't go right to start the season, they could dig themselves a hole very easily. Let's talk about Cincinnati. Cincinnati's obviously a very good team. They have a returning roster, a great offense, great wide receivers, Joe Burrow, and a great defense. They've been a really good team. They haven't really changed much. All they've done is add to their offensive line. This team's going to be good if Joe Burrow plays. Now, obviously, injuries can make any team season go south. Obviously, an injury to your quarterback, even double. Joe Burrow is that team. If Joe Burrow's not there, obviously, that's going to be an issue. And not even saying like, oh, what if Joe Burrow misses a bunch of games? Joe Burrow could play in most of the games this year, but affect the team's outcome, because what if this calf thing just is like a reoccurring thing where he just isn't 100% all year? Or this calf thing leads to another injury that leads to another thing that makes him off for a whole year. And it's only possible because Joe Burrow does get hit a lot for a quarterback. So that's the only thing I can see that derails the Bengals season. Maybe they got some holes in the secondary, but if Joe Burrow's there, they can score enough points to overcome that. I think their win range is 10 to 12 games. And I think that makes a ton of sense for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they have a very good defensive line. They have some superstar players on defense, and they have an improved offensive line. The issue with Pittsburgh is the offense. And it's not because I think that offense is going to be abysmal. I think that offense will be able to move the ball fine. I just think they're going to be one of those teams that offensively have a low margin of error. And if you need an example of what it looks like when the offense is executing fine, but has a low margin of error, look at like the Jacoby Brissett era in Cleveland. That was an offense that moved the ball fine, but the Browns went 4-7 in those 11 games. And that was because when you have to play like that, your margin of error is very small. 1 interception, 1 fumble, 1 mistake, and the game tips out of your favor. Hell, sometimes it doesn't even have to be a mistake. Sometimes you can just be unfortunate. The team that you're playing gets the ball before halftime, and they just happen to be the team that gets the ball after halftime. They get up 10 to 14 points on you, and then you're playing from behind. See, I don't know if the Steelers are the type of team that can play from behind, but they are the type of team that will be able to do basically what the Browns were able to do last year with Jacoby Brissett. And I expect Kenny Pickett's numbers to look kind of similar to what Jacoby Brissett did in those 11 games, just stretch that out to 17. The issue with playing that way is that there's just the margin of error is too narrow, and it's easy to lose close games when you can only play like that. I just don't think they have very many ways to win on the offensive side of the ball. Outside of running the ball and doing a little dink and dunk passing, I really don't think that they're a team that can win in a shootout. I don't think they're a team that can come from behind. I just don't see very many paths for victory for that Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And unless this defense is all world, and I think they're going to be a good defense and a pretty good defense, I don't think they're going to be all world. So I think this is a 9-win team. I don't think their floor is any lower. I don't think their ceiling is any higher. To me, this looks like a 9-win football team, in my opinion. Now let's quickly talk about the Browns, and I'm going to go over the Browns real briefly because if you watch this channel, you know that I talk about the Browns almost every day, sometimes twice a day. So my opinions are pretty well known on this, and if you want to know my opinions, there's a wealth of videos where I go more in depth than I'm going to go in now if you want to know my opinions on the Browns. I think the Browns are a very talented team. I think everything's lining up for them, right? They need good quarterback play. They need good defensive play. Myles Garrett is looking like he's going to step up. Their defensive line is well upgraded from last year. They've made moves on every weakness. They should be a very good team. They look like a very good team. But quarterback play is going to be what dictates how much of their expectations they fulfill. I think the win range for this team is wide, similar to Baltimore, but I think their win range is a little higher because I have less questions about the Cleveland Browns, because both of the Browns corners are going to be healthy to start the week, or at least two of the three. And Denzel Ward looks like he's going to come off a concussion protocol for week 1. Even if that, they have tremendous depth at that cornerback position. I think the Browns roster is just better. I think steps better than the rest of the division here. The question is, hey, can they get the execution from the quarterback position? And everything indicates that Deshaun Watson's probably going to look like Deshaun Watson. Win range for this team is 9 to 12. I think if Deshaun Watson lives up to those expectations, you'll be closer to that 12. If Deshaun Watson disappoints, or, you get mixed quarterback play for whatever reason, it's going to be closer to 9 wins. But that's the win range for this team, a very talented team. And I think they're the team that, hey, if somebody can break through and really challenge Cincinnati, I think it's going to be Cleveland this year. I think the division is going to come down to Cleveland and Cincinnati. That's what makes the most sense to me. We know Pittsburgh's going to be at a solid 9 wins, so they'll probably be in 3rd place. And I think Baltimore is a team that is in danger of, hey, if this don't start clicking early, they could fall back and end up in last place before they know it. So that's my thoughts on the AFC North. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.